Hello everyone. So in last session we discussed about what is JDBC API and then after we discussed the types of drivers we have. Okay. So now in the today's session we are going to discuss about the steps of the JDBC. Okay. So here we have the first step is load driver. Okay, so once you load the driver, once you add your connector to your project, then after you have to load the driver. Okay, so for loading the driver, for that we have a method. We have not just only method, we have a static method of class and the method name is for name method. Okay, so for name method is a static method of class and the method take parameter is your driver URL. Okay, so whenever you want to load driver to your application, for that we have to call our method. The method name is for name method. For name method is a static method of class. So how will you call your method? Class dot for name, and the method will take parameter is your driver URL. Okay, and the method throws an exception. The exception is known as class not found exception. Okay, so the method throws an exception. The exception name is class not found exception. For that we have to handle using the try catch block. Okay, so in the first step we are going to load our driver. We are using thin driver. Okay, in the last session we saw we are going to use thin driver. Okay, so let us understand this first method, load driver. So for loading the driver, we are going to use the static method of class. Then after the method is going to take the parameter is known as driver URL. Then after the method throws an exception, the exception name is known as class not found exception. For that we are going to handle the try catch block. So method will look like try, then after class dot for name and the driver URL, like for example JDBC dot Derby. Okay, like whatever the URL you have, and then after close, and then after we have to use catch and then class not found exception like this. Okay, so this is look like our first step. So for loading driver, we are using the method. We are using methods. Static method is known as for name method. Okay, once we load driver, once we have loaded the driver, then after we have to create a connection. In the second step, we have to create connection to database. Okay, so whenever you want to create a connection to the database, for that you are going to use the method. Okay, so you are going to use static method of driver manager class, and the static method is known as get connection. So we have to use get connection method. Okay, so get connection is a static method of driver manager class. So how will you call your method? Driver manager dot get connection. The method will take three parameter. Okay, so the method will take three parameters. URL of your database, URL of database. This is mandatory. Okay, so this is mandatory parameter. Then after you have username of the database and the password of the database, and these are the optional. Okay, so this two is optional, and the URL is the mandatory parameter of your method. Okay, then after the get connection method throw an exception. The exception name is known as class, sorry, SQL exception. The method throws an exception. That exception is known as SQL exception. For that, we need to handle it through try, catch, block. Okay. So once we handle it through try catch block, we can easily access the method. For example, your driver URL is wrong. So in that time, the method throws an exception. Database is not found. Like this, the SQL exception will return. Okay. And very important thing about the get connection method return the connection. Okay, connection interface reference. Okay, for that we need to create the connection reference first, and then only we have to access the method. Okay, so this connection we need in our fourth step. So for example, integer a is equals to add. So now if you define the add method, so how will you define int add is equals to, so like this. So this method return the connection. So here we have to return the connection because this method is going to create the connection with the database. For that, the connection, the virtual connection is going to store inside the connection reference. So right now we have that con is related to database. Okay, so we are directly going to fire the queries with the help of the con. So then only we can manipulate the our object. So try to be understand that the get connection method is a static method of driver manager class. The get connection method will take three parameters: URL of your database, then after optional parameters, username of your database, password of your database. And the method throws an exception. That exception is known as SQL exception. For that, we need to be handle the method through try catch block, and this get connection method throws the return, sorry, the method return the virtual connection reference, and for that we need to be create the connection reference, and then only we have to access the method, then only we can complete our second step. Okay, once we complete our second step, then after we have to go for our third step, and third step is very easy. In the third step, what we are going to do, we are going to create a query. Okay, so in the third step we are going to create a query we are going to store inside the string object. Okay, so how we are going to do, so string SQL is equals to, we are we are doing operation on insert, so insert into employee EID, ename, eSalary. Then after values, we are providing dynamic value. That dynamic value we have to pass in the question mark. Okay, so in a string object, we have to create a query. Okay, so now in our bus, Ram went to the bus, driver is loaded, the destination is also created. Then after we have asked to the driver where we have to stop with the help of the query. But now where we have to stop, that is not in our hand. This is not in our hand. Okay. So queries does not fire directly. Okay. So query does not fire directly because these are the string object. Okay. So string we cannot fire directly. So our like RAM is not going to take the bus. Okay, Ram does not have the steering of the bus. He needs to be communicate with the driver. Okay, so here is the same example we have to use. String. We cannot fire string directly. For that, we have to create statements in Java. Okay, so string we cannot fire directly. For that, we need to be create statement. So we have two statements. Okay, so statements we have statement is an interface. So we have two statement interface. First interface is your statement interface. Okay, statement interface, and second one is your prepared statement interface. Okay, so these are the two interfaces we have. So statement interface we gonna use when we have static queries. Okay, so the statement interface we gonna use, let us see. So statement interface we used when we have static query. So static query, it means a query does not have parameter. It means you have not parameter. That time you are going to use the statement. For that, we have to use the method from connection reference. So already we have created the uh, reference in our second step. That connection reference method we're gonna use in this step. So we can call the method for the static query. The method name is known as create query, create statement. Okay, so we have to call create statement method, and the method will not take the parameter. The method where you found, the method will found in the con dot. Con we have created, and the method return the statement interface. So for example, SMT I have created, and the SMT is like a statement interface reference. So now when you use this, then only you can fire your query to the statement. So you can convert your query to statement. Okay. So this example we have to use practical as well. Next type of the statement is known as prepared statement interface. So for prepared statement interface, again we are going to use for the dynamic query. Okay, so we are going to take the parametric query inside the prepare statement, and prepare statement does not create the object for redundant query. Okay, so it's not create object for redundant query. So basically, the prepare statement we're gonna use when we want to just only we have to insert update, because insert update delete we have to do multiple times. But create table, the create table we have to create only once. Okay, and it is a static query. And prepare statement basically used for SQL injection. So it is very safe. Okay, comparatively with statement. So here, when you have a dynamic query, that time you are going to use the prepare statement. So in the prepare statement, how we can achieve prepare statement? So for that we have a method. Method is present inside connection dot, and the method name is prepared statement. Okay, so method name is prepared statement. Method belongs to which inter and this method will take parameter of your query, and then after you are going to convert your query to the statement. So now this method will return prepared statement PST. Okay, so this is the example of prepared statement and the statement. So statement we are going to use for the static query, and the prepare statement we are going to use the dynamic query, and it is a safe. Okay, so SQL injection we can achieve in the prepare statement. We are not going to put the any data directly, like in the statement we have not the question mark. Okay, so here this is the statement. Once your query is converted into statement, then after we have to execute the statement. Okay, so we have to execute statement. Okay, so we have for that method, we have two methods. Are the method we have we have execute update, and we have second method is known as execute query. Okay, so execute update, when we use execute update method, we use for insert, we use for update, we use for deletion, and execute query we are going to use for basically for this select operation. Execute update return the this method is present to statement, so we have to call this pst dot execute update, pst dot execute query. So these are the methods. Okay, so execute query and execute update are the method. So execute update method return the number of row affected value. Okay, so this method is written number of rows affected value in int or boolean, that we'll see practically. But execute query return very important interface. That interface we have to discuss is known as result set interface. So this method is going to return the result set interface that we have to see practically. Okay, so for now, just theoretically try to understand, guys, because in the practical, these topics are really, really easy to understand. Okay, so execute update returns number of rows affected value in integer and boolean, and execute query returns the result set interface. Once our fifth steps is done, then after we have to close the connection and close the statements. Okay, so first we have to close the statement, and then after we have to close the connection. Okay, so I hope now all of you have clear with this topic. So again, let us discuss our first step. So first step we have load driver. Once driver is loaded, then after we have created the connection, then connection take a static method is known as get connection. Get connection is a static method of driver manager class. Will take three parameters: URL of your database, username of your database, password of your database. URL is mandatory, username and password are optional. It throws an exception is known as SQL exception. For that we have to handle it through try catch block. And get connection method throw return the connection interface reference. It is a virtual connection, so we have to store inside the reference. So for that we have to create the reference first. Then after we have to create a query. Once we have created the query, then after we cannot fire queries directly. For that we have to convert it into the statement. So we have two statements and prepared statement. So statement we are going to use for the static query, And prepare statement we are using for the dynamic query. The query contains the parameter, for that we are using the prepare statement. Then after we have to execute statement. For that we have execute update and execute query method. Execute update method you are going to use for insertion, deletion and updation, and it's return the number of rows affected value in integer and boolean. Okay, and execute query, it's return the resulted interface. And then after we have to close the statement and we have to close the connection. So first loaded driver through the method is known as for name method, and it is a static method of class and the method through exception is known as class not found exception. Okay, so I hope this theory, if it is clear, then let's see the practical, and I hope you will definitely enjoy. And one more important note I have to write here. So note is what I am using. I am going to use the Derby database. So Derby database is embedded database. So I don't need to be go to XAMPP, or I don't need to be download any server. So this embedded database we are going to create inside in our Eclipse ID. So this database we are going to do inside the Eclipse ID. So for that we need to be driver the jar, Derby embedded jar. Okay. So we are not going to use any XAMPP. Okay. We are not going to download any Postgres. We are just going to use the Derby embedded driver. It is a very good database for learning. Okay. So whenever you are learning, so for that you need to, you know, go to the Derby database first. Okay. So now how we can do, how we can connect our driver, how we can create a database, that all the things we are going to see practically. So now let's start our Eclipse and then we achieve our steps. So open the Eclipse ID. Okay, so here I'm going to create the new workspace. So Eclipse is going to open in a new workspace. So here, let's create a new project. Right click file, new project, project name Java project. So here I'm going to do JDBC 01, click on next and finish. So JDBC 01 project has created. So in the project, I have to create a file. I have to create a class, and it is a very good practice that you are going to store your similar classes inside the package. So for that, I'm going to create first package. My package name is com.app, and in the com.app, I'm going to create a class. The class is known as application class. Application class contains public static void main function. Okay, so now if I run, now I am writing JDBC code. Okay, I am writing JDBC code. Now I'm going to run. Yes, I'm going to write JDBC code. Okay, so let us execute. So now let's download connector first. Then after add to the project. Okay, so this step now we have to do. So let's download the connector from the internet. So open Google Chrome and here Maven repository. Go to Maven repository, select the Derby jar and select Apache Derby embedded driver. Then simply click on download. This version is working fine. So I'll click on the download. So here, if I click, then go to jar. Once you go to jar, then only you will see your driver is now going to download. Okay. So now once your driver is downloaded, then after you have to connect to the your project. Okay. So now how to connect? So right click to the project, go to build path, configure build path, click on the libraries, go to model path, add external jars, and this is the Derby jar we have downloaded. Just click on open, apply, and apply close. Now you can see in the reference library we have Derby jar, and inside Derby jar we have this org.apache.derby, and we are using embedded database. Okay, embedded Derby database. For that we are going to use embedded driver. So just click on copy qualified name. So once I have clicked on copy qualified name, I will get my driver like this. So now this driver you have to load in our first step. Okay, so now for that what I will do, I will just call. Okay, so first step we saw in the load driver step. So what is the load driver step? So load driver, for that we are using the method is known as for name method. Okay, so for name method is a static method of class. Okay, and method will take the URL. Already URL we have, and the method throws an exception. For that we have to handle it through try catch block. So let's call class dot for name. Okay, and the method will take driver URL. Okay, now why it is showing an error? Unhandled exception type class not found exception. So just use through try catch block. Okay, so here we will print driver added. Okay, now if our driver is loaded successfully, then we will get the output. Okay, so whenever I'll execute, okay, so this is a newer version. For that, the model info file you have to delete. You don't need to be add the model info.java. We don't need to be give the info. Just we are going to load. I am writing Java code and driver added successfully. So now driver we have added successfully. So now once we add driver, now let us do our next step. So what is the next step? We have to create a connection. Okay, so you have to use only one try catch block. You don't need to use two try catch block. Okay, it is unnecessary. So in the second step, we are returning connection interface reference. Okay, so connection interface reference you are returning. So let us create connection is an interface. Con is equals to null. Okay, so we have created the connection. So we have to call con is equals to driver manager dot dot get connection, and we have to pass the URL. So now this method is also showing an error that the method is unhandled exception type SQL exception. So handle it through existing catch block. Okay. So now if I run the code, I will print something that I am I have added the database and the connection. Now if I run the code, of driver. So we have not yet provided the our database URL. Okay, so how to create database in the Eclipse? So we are going to use the Derby embedded database. So how we can do that? So for that we need to be follow the steps. So now we are going to create the database. So please, database you have to create only one. You don't need to be create database again and again. Please make sure follow the same steps how to create the database. So for that, what you can do, go to Windows, Show View, Data Source Explorer. Just click here, go to Data Source Explorer. In the database connection, just right click and click on New. Once you go to new, this window will open. Then click on Derby. Okay, I'm going to select the Derby database because I'm using Derby embedded because already I have the connector for the Derby. So just I selected the Derby, then click on next. Once I click on next, I need to be provide the driver definition. So here I'm using Derby embedded driver, but the driver definition is not coming here. So don't worry about it. Just click on finish. When you are doing first time, then that time the, the driver definitions will not come here. But whenever you are creating already you have given, so that time the drivers will come here, so make sure you note that. So right now driver is not present, just click on the plus icon, new driver definition. So here in the driver definition, now let add the driver. Okay, so which driver we are using? Derby embedded driver. So here if I click on Derby embedded driver, just remove this existing jar. Okay, and add our new jar. Already we have the driver jar we have uh, downloaded. Okay, so Derby embedded jar, click on the jar list, add our jar, click on OK. This is the URL of your database. Just click on test connection. Test connection is succeed. It means database created. Click on next and finish. Now you can see database created for you. Now how to create table inside the database? So right click to the your database, open SQL scrapbook, and here let us create database. Create table stu sid integer yes name varchar and yes marks double. Okay, so right click, execute current text, table created, and now select star from stu. Now I will run the execute current text. Yes, table has come. Okay. So now again very important note I have to explain you. Note, whenever whenever you are working with console, that time your database should be off or disconnected. Okay. Otherwise it will throw an error. The error name table view does not exist. So this kind of error you will get if you not disconnect your database. So make sure just note inside in your notebook, whenever you are working on your console, that time your database should be disconnected. Okay, otherwise you will get an error like table view does not exist. Okay, so now I have completed my work to my database. So now I will go to Data Source Explorer and I'm going to disconnect my database. Okay. And whenever you want to URL, just right click to your database and just click on connect, copy, control, click on URL, control A, control C, and click on cancel. We don't need to be connect our database now. So I will just paste it here, our URL, and I will be running the our code. Now I have added database as well as the connection. You can see I have added the database and connection. If we miss something, so we'll get an error like SQL exception. No database is found like this. Okay. So URL you need to be correct. Now I have added the database and the connection. Okay. Now once we done this, now let us move for our third step. Okay. So first step is done. Second step. Now third step. So what is the third step? Create a query. So string SQL already table created for us. So we just need to be insert. So what we have? So we have HTU table where we have SID, SNAME, SMarks. So what we will do? Insert into HTU EID in a sorry. We have SID, yes, name, yes, marks, values is equals to question mark, comma, question mark, comma, question mark. Okay. So we have provided. Now, once we have done this, now we have to convert our query to statement. Okay. So now query does not query does not fire directly. For that, we need to be converted into statement. For that, we are right now the query type is parametric. So I'm going to create a prepare statement. Prepared statement PST is equals to null. Okay, once I created the preface statement PST is equals to null, so I will I will call the method from my connection. This method name is prepare statement SQL. Okay, and I pass the query. So now my query converted into statement. But if you done this, so you have achieved 50% your fourth step. Okay, why 50%? Because you have to process each and every question mark. Okay, so we need to be process the each and every question mark. So how to process question mark? So for that we have a method and methods are belongs to statement only. Okay, so now you can see the first question mark is belongs to SID. Second is belongs to S name. Third is belongs to S marks. So the question mark, the method in the statements we have method are according to the data type of the question marks. So we have method setting, set double, set string. Okay, so this method are belongs to the data type of your question mark. So now we have to call our first question mark because we have to process each and every question mark. So I'm calling pst dot set int because my first question mark is belongs to integer and I want value is equals to 100. Okay, then after I'm going to process the second question mark and the question mark is belongs to string. So for that I'm going to call set string and I'm going to put data is equals to Parag and then after third question mark is belongs to double. So set double third question mark is belongs to double 3.5 and once it is done then after what I have to do I have to execute my statement. Once it is done, then 50% and 50%. Now our fourth step is done. And then after we have to call our fifth step. Okay, so for fifth step, we know that the query type is insert. So now we have to use execute update method. And execute update method returns integer. So for that, I'm going to declare here one integer variable check. Okay, so I will call check is equals to the method is in PST dot execute update and execute update returns integer value. I will just see out check. Okay, I will see out the check. Then after PST dot close and connection dot close. Okay, so now once we done this, now if our output is 1, then it means data has inserted successfully. So now I'm going to run the code. It's 1. It means data has inserted successfully. Let us check in our data source. So now I want to work for my database. For that, I will just start again. So I'm going to connect, apply close, and I will come to SQL scrapbook. Again, I'm going to select star from execute current text. And if I select, so you can see in the our embedded database, our information came. So right now, our SID come, SNAME come, and the S marks come. Okay, so now this operation is just for the insert. Okay, so we can do for the deletion as well. So now what I will do instead of this, I will just write query string SQL is equals to delete from STU where SID is equals to question mark. Okay, so now you can see guys, now how many question mark we have? So we have only one question mark. So we don't need to be processed this two. And first question mark is belongs to integer. So for that, I will just write the I want to remove 100. Okay. So again, I will execute my code. Oh, it's showing an error. Okay, so failed to start to the database table. So why this error is coming? Because our data source explorer started. So that is why this error is coming. So make sure it is a very good practice that you will disconnect your database. So now database is disconnected. Now I'm going to run and I can see output is 1. Again, I will connect to my database and I will come to data source, our SQL scrapbook, execute current text. Now 103.5 has removed because of the delete function. We called the delete operation. So this is all about the JDBC. I hope you find the better the session. Just make me, if you have doubts, so please ping me in comment section. I will, guide you once, we will learn this. And if you have a comment, okay. So I hope you find the session well. Okay, thank you everyone to join the session.